research videos available on the internet that really help us understand or decipher the world around us, and we do praise many of them. But exposing collusion is only 50% of the solution. What we need is a new system, a money-free system, not based on technology, but a comprehension of the laws of nature, so that technology can develop in the best environment possible and for the sake of humanity.
About the idea of immaterialism manifesting as our universe.
Well, we've all seen the movie The Matrix, and then you begin to wonder, computer games are getting so realistic that maybe these avatars are real, and maybe we are avatars. Maybe we are nothing but cosmic digitized figures dancing on somebody's computer screen. And then to take it one step even farther than that, let's say that this person who hits the play button, starting this video game, has a dream. And we are the dream. And so cosmic consciousness then determines the existence of reality itself. And so that gives an entirely new meaning to the question of, is reality just a dream, a figment of somebody's subconscious dreaming? Well, believe it or not, quantum physicists are looking at some of these ideas rather carefully. And you see, in quantum theory, things are not real until they're measured. But measurement requires consciousness. Only conscious beings can measure things. And so lasers, transistors, computers, the internet, all of it is based on the quantum principle that consciousness determines existence.
But what
Michio has never really been a fan of ours, but at least this time we have to nod at him for saying that anything that cannot be verified does not exist. But that consciousness is needed to verify that. And that is correct, because consciousness is too an energy field. There lies a catch-22, and which means that physics and metaphysics are both inseparable. The status quo between the two must end, as it is destroying the fabric of society. That's right. It is the failure to understand and accept that reality is a very omnipotent cosmic dream that is tearing a world apart. And for the dream to end well, we will have to allow empathy to govern all human exchanges. Our video, The Fractal Science of Empathy, clearly makes the case for a mind universe, projecting reality. Metaphysics removes the dogmatic aspect of science, and by metaphysics we mean the forces at work throughout the cosmos and sustaining life and shaping consciousness. They are called principles, and there are 7 of them. They were already known 3,000 years or so ago. The latter connect all living organisms and are sentient, therefore. We will elaborate on them in our long feature documentary. It is, however, essential to accept the reality of these forces because it is the very reason why monetarism has been highly destructive, precisely due to a lack of metaphysical value attached to life. We don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, really, but the electric universe. though it is absolutely plausible that some parts of the universe die while others are being born, because the universe itself is self-similar across scales. The same process takes place in the human body. The principle of correspondence is a scientific fact. Every living organism is a micro-version of the cosmos. Life cycles are inevitable. We do not rule out that a better understanding of this urgent matter could even lead to a new holistic approach as how money is perceived and help us comparing it to an accounting method instead of a medium to store wealth. Our notion of wealth is millennia old and has completely poisoned our rapport with nature. The mere presence of money does that because it fuels competition. A money-free world would definitely enhance our life experience. One thing is certain, we can no longer continue to monetize life, because doing so is like battling windmills while being completely but truly swallowed up by an extremely digital and controlling structure.
Nuclear war and ecological collapse are already familiar threats, so let me spend some time explaining the less familiar threat posed by technological disruption. In Davos, we hear so much about the enormous promises of technology, and these promises are certainly real, but technology might also disrupt human society and the very meaning of human life in numerous ways, ranging from the creation of a global useless class to the rise of data colonialism and of digital dictatorships. In the 21st century, the really big struggle will be against irrelevance. And it's much worse to be irrelevant than to be exploited. Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless, not from the viewpoint of their friends and family, of course, but useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system. And this useless class will be separated by an ever-growing gap from the ever more powerful elite. The AI revolution might create unprecedented inequality, not just between classes, but also between countries. In the 19th century, a few countries, like Britain and Japan, industrialized first, and they went on to conquer and exploit most of the world. If we aren't careful, the same thing will happen in the 21st century with AI. We are already in the midst of an AI arms race, with China and the USA leading the race, and most countries being left far, far behind.
The threat of invasion has always been a recurrent theme throughout humanity's history. This time it is of values and the fear of becoming obsolete. An invader that cannot be seen with the naked eye, and machines are taking over. We should always remember, though, that any centralized implementation, being the result of fear, is designed to erode our sovereignty. There is no freedom nor immortality by and for the people to expect from AI. Those who tell us that AI is inevitable perfectly know where all this is going. But there is a solution, and which is to unplug it until we figure out new ways to help humanity wise up, and from there assess its real potential. We've got nothing to lose at this stage, really. For many years, we thought that precious metals were the solution to world issues. and that the green movement was even part of the problem. But a decade ago, we had to realize that the major flaw lies in the endless profit economic paradigm, and which brought about an aberration called meritocracy. Many years ago, we realized that meritocracy just hurts everybody because it makes us complacent about poverty and structural violence. It also seems to justify atrocities like human trafficking and wars, which is really depopulation in disguise. Meritocracy really institutionalizes the notion of necessary evil. This new understanding really affected our worldview. And from there, we began to see all the destruction made in the name of profit. And also pay attention to our own household's waste. That was such a huge eye-opener. Because societies disregarded the situation for so many centuries and the illusion that industrialization allowed us to hoard wealth like never before, we really didn't see the brick wall get closer. But now it's there, and a societal freight train is rushing towards it. The problem with "we must restore nature" is that it won't work that way, but by consuming much less and shift our focus towards a full-fledged circular economy. But a fully efficient circular economy will require to stick to organic raw materials. Plastic, for example, has no future because it shouldn't exist in the first place. Recycling plastic is as much polluting as making it. Fixing our impact on nature will help nature fix herself. And we are merely neglecting the fact that nature also needs to be left alone. Man-made laws are a core issue, inadequate and inefficient. The fact is that we need to become more caring first and quit thinking that we can globally manage nature. It will take time to heal from generational conflicts induced by our thirst for control. The fear of scarcity does not need to be, because even if we are mammals, we are not bound to the same natural laws governing the animal kingdom. What did we just say? It's wrong. Natural laws work the same for every living organism, but each level of creation responds to them with a different awareness, though all operating in symbiosis. Yes, we cannot dominate nature, because all variations in awareness that exist, in fact, cooperate organically, and it is only when life is respected that we can feel safe. The future will tell whether humanity can evolve beyond the fear of being born and life cycles, telling us that the physical is always limited, but necessary to improve each soul's experience. We have pondered these matters now for many years and are quite convinced that there is no other explanation possible. Make no mistake, we are here to learn about fear and why fear is impeding our sovereignty. Materialism has been a massive distraction so far that has done wonders. But something big must be given up and changed now.
I've just come back from Los Angeles. I was down there to meet with a group of rather important people, people in the movie industry, scientists and so on, who were considering calling a congress of the best minds in the world to meet in Los Angeles in the near future, to be a kind of planetary alarm conference. They wanted scientists and statesmen, religious leaders, and to do something to impress upon the world through all the media that we are in very serious danger of destroying the biosphere, that is to say, the whole envelope of living creatures which covers this planet. Here were all these brilliant people, and it came over us that we really didn't know what we ought to say. I mean, you can scream and create a state of panic, but that won't do any good. And when it came down to it, we didn't know what we ought to say because we really don't know what to do. Some things that we might do, for example, to increase the food supply with high-yield crops, may be ecological mistakes. And so the consensus of almost everybody at the meeting was that in some way or other, the human race has to learn how to leave the world alone and let what is called the natural homeostasis, that is the self-balancing process of nature, take care of the mess. Now, how are we going to do that?
We listened to Alan Watts several times. His work definitely resonates with the meta-philosophy we have shared via our blog and video materials over the years. In a nutshell, and since the universal mind experiences itself continually, it also means that we are bound to the very same cosmic patterns, and implies that the human mind cannot think too far ahead towards any desired or self-indulging outcomes either. Very long-term outcomes never materialize because knowledge continually evolves and eventually turns these projections into mirages or threatening fallacies because the system has lost all flexibility. Any attempt to address any small details within the pyramid of control comes with the realization that doing anything would cause a chain reaction, ushering a full-fledged societal collapse. Yes, the stakes are high, but trying to prevent the collapse of a dying system isn't wise at all either. We are simply in the process to fathom that natural laws want us to be the custodians of life above all. And although this awakening will not go without pain, the aftermath will lead to a knowledge-based discipline and abundance. Yes, it can be done. The ego can give in as soon as the new mindset gradually begins to replace the old one. Many get frustrated or shrug off when explained the big picture because they choose to focus on what affects them directly. Nonetheless, the storm of all time has been gathering pace over the centuries and is now inevitable. We can no longer blame society anymore. That is what we have done since ever, after all. And saying that the matter is too big to handle too appears very futile. Taking responsibility for everything is the only fashion to deal with the current world crisis. And as we see it, we do not think that there is a big problem with thinking a few years ahead per se, for example, but nonetheless concur. The shorter is the time frame, the more everything remains quickly manageable. What is definitely correct? Thinking decades ahead fuels irrationality. That is what society has done throughout history. And when we happen to honestly look back, it is clear that our obsessions with societal management have caused additional layers of problems that only have benefited the same ruling ideology since ever, and their weapon called monetarism as well. Regardless of any belief system, natural laws not drafted by humans will always have the final word. So where does it leave us? Since natural laws proved the morality of the universe. All is energy and self-aware, and matter being energy too. And this is a reality that will have to become a new global consensus. After all, today we have the irrefutable and physical evidence that everything is interconnected. What's contends that there is nothing we can do, but there is still one thing we all can do from our homes and effortlessly. The rise of AI is impossible without forced data sharing and why fear is being used to usher this great reset. AI would cease to self-improve. By just endorsing our birthrights, coerced data sharing would stop and AI would become irrelevant quite quickly. If we ditched our cell phones and turned off our device using the Internet of Things, chose to rebuild our social bonds, and just kept one computer active per household for a while. AI isn't inevitable. Here is the interview of the French elitist Jacques Attali, recorded 40 years ago, and which is really something to chew on.
Alors, que devient la liberté dans un système de soins accaparant comme celui-là?
Bien, le concept même de liberté va devenir de plus en plus perverti. Et c'est ça qui est fascinant dans cette évolution, et c'est peut-être pour ça qu'elle est le plus terrible, c'est qu'elle va récupérer tous les concepts, y compris celui de liberté. Je dirais même y compris les idées d'Illich dont vous parliez tout à l'heure. Parce que qu'est-ce que c'est cette société de machines qui nous apprend à nous surveiller nous-mêmes? C'est une société qui dit, soyez libre, débarrassez-vous du médecin, soignez-vous vous-même, sortez de l'hôpital, ce que dit Illich. Et autrement dit, elle va, sous prétexte de liberté, sous prétexte d'autonomie, créer les conditions de l'aliénation la plus formidable, qui est en quelque sorte l'aliénation par soi-même, volontaire, à une norme imposée de l'extérieur. On nous dira, il ne faut pas fumer, pas conduire, pas boire, mais aussi pas avoir tel gène dans sa structure héréditaire. Si vous l'avez, vous êtes extérieur à la norme, faites tout ce que vous pouvez pour vous en débarrasser. Et autrement dit, on fera que ce qui est la forme absolue de la dictature, que chacun d'entre nous ait librement, entre guillemets, envie d'être conforme à la norme. Que chacun d'entre nous ait librement, entre guillemets, envie de se comporter comme un esclave. Et ce qui est la forme absolue de la dictature, puisqu'on fera que chacun d'entre nous aura envie d'imiter un modèle, une copie, une sorte d'idéal standardisé qu'on nous imposera de l'extérieur. Et ce qui est fascinant, c'est que c'est à travers la médecine, à travers le bien et le mal, à travers le rapport à la mort, que cette nouvelle forme de société totalitaire est en train de s'installer.
On aura demain aux États-Unis ou en Europe une carte comme ça.
Une carte d'identité de la santé.
La nouvelle carte d'identité que chacun aura qui contient l'essentiel de votre histoire médicale, tout ce que vous avez le droit de faire et de ne pas faire, les maladies auxquelles vous êtes prédisposé qui vous permettent de faire certains métiers ou de ne pas les faire. Une sorte de...
Le marché va s'étendre à des secteurs pour lesquels jusqu'à présent ils n'avaient pas accès, tels que la santé, l'éducation, la justice, la police, les affaires étrangères. Et en même temps, parallèlement, dans la mesure où il n'y a pas de règle de droit, le marché va s'étendre à des domaines aujourd'hui considérés comme illégaux, criminels, comme la prostitution, le commerce des organes, le commerce des armes, le racket, etc., etc. Et donc, on aura de plus en plus un marché qui va dominer, entraînant une concentration des richesses, une inégalité croissante, une priorité absolue donnée au court terme et à la tyrannie de l'instant et de l'argent, jusque et y compris, au fond, au bout de la route, la commercialisation de la chose la plus importante, c'est-à-dire la vie, la transformation de l'être humain en un objet marchand, lui-même devenu un clone.
Money is a tool to control outcomes because we cannot afford to lose any. It is also a major incentive to convince or even manipulate others. But our long-term quest for security at all costs is exactly what has led us into this seemingly inextricable situation. Freedom is the opposite of control, and there is no freedom at all when endorsing the slightest form of exploitation or commodification of life, because we are all evenly affected by our environment. There is one and sole value that can protect us from human-made hardship, and it is called empathy, compassion. Yes, you get it. Love. Natural laws are banding together to make sure that we will eventually comprehend what is happening to us. Suffering and destruction are no more less than the very manifestation of our errors, and we will have to adjust our thinking patterns. There is no other way to put it. This is what it is. Caring for each other is the law. The new paradigm is opening up, and there is no room for the old ways of thinking anymore. We have to leave the world of sensing behind and move into the world of knowing. The realization that life is sacred. Only the reformation of education can ensure a more peaceful society. We cannot get rid of the bad or the evil, because they exist to guide our steps towards the root of all good. But the good can only manifest once we accept that all our actions to be geared towards the protection of life. So yes, our destiny is to embrace the stewardship of the planet. Each of us, and together,